Hi everyone, my name is Alex and welcome to my channel where sometimes I forget to post a video for the week. I'm sorry, just got distracted, excuses, forgot about it, I was busy. So for this video, it was very well planned out. I put a lot of thought into it and I did a lot of research for this. Obviously you know it is about the haunted house called the Whaley House. So why I'm basically doing this, if you know me, I love creepy, scary things. I've always had an interest for it, even when I was little. About 5 years ago, I decided to look up haunted, scary places when we were going on vacation. And the very first one that I've ever been to was called the Whaley House. Now, within the 5 years that I've been kind of trying to find more haunted places, I have been to 3 more haunted places. And I thought I was going to put this all into one video, but I don't want this to be an hour long, and trying to edit an hour long video isn't very fun. So the very first haunted house I've ever been to is called the Whaley House, and it's located in San Diego, California. And when I was there, it was June of 2011. This was our second time that we've ever been to California, and we decided to go to San Diego where my cousin lives. And there was one evening we didn't have anything going on, so I suggested that we try to find a haunted house tour somewhere. And the Whaley House wasn't that far of a drive, so we decided to go there. But I really didn't know anything about the place, so it was definitely an adventure. So my absolute favorite thing about a haunted house is knowing the history and what the hell happened to the family during a crazy event making the house extremely haunted. So the very first thing I'm going to be talking about is the history. If you really don't want to listen to the history, I will post a time somewhere to click on the video to see the actual hauntings of the house. You can click there, and then I will also be talking about my own personal experience of what happened on the tour and yada yada. So if you want that instead of the history, please click away, whatever. For those of you that want to stay for like my absolute favorite part of this, please enjoy. So we are going to be talking about the Whaley family. So to start it all off, we have Thomas Whaley, who is the father of this family. He used to live in New York City. He decided to leave and come to California in 1849 during the gold rush. Before the house was built, it used to be a hanging grounds. The most well-known person who was hanged there was called Yankee Jim, who is also James Robinson, who's also known as Santiago. That's what the website said. I don't know. Mr. Whaley was actually there to see him be hanged, but it didn't stop him from purchasing the property a few years later to build his house. So Mr. Whaley purchased the land and he designed the 2-story house for only $10,000, which is not a lot of money to build a house. And it was finished in 1857. Mr. Whaley had stores before he moved out to California. He was a very successful businessman, and he wanted to incorporate his own store in the Whaley House. By 1858, they had 3 children. They had Francis, Thomas, who died at 18 months of age, and Anna. They moved to San Francisco after one of the Whaley businesses, not in that house, but in a different part of town, burned down, and then after the death of their son Thomas, they decided to move to San Francisco. They had 3 more children while they were staying there. They had George, Violet, and Corinne, who also went by Lillian, and I don't know why, she just did. After an earthquake in May of 1868, the Whaley family returned to their original house in San Diego. They decided to add a commercial theater, which was placed in one of the rooms upstairs, and ran from October 1868 to January 1869. So even though the theater wasn't running for very long, it was San Diego's very first commercial theater, so it was very popular at that time. Since the Whaley House ran many operations in the house, it was pretty much the focus of the town, and the Whaley House wasn't the only house that had many operations running from it. There were several other family houses that were doing the same thing, but they were all in that area. It was kind of like the main center point of San Diego. The new town San Diego was created in 1868, which brought the main focus to that part of town, and this is current downtown San Diego. So now getting more into their personal lives, because this is where everything kind of starts to go downhill. So in 1882, one of the daughters, Anna, married her first cousin, John Whaley, which is sadly not the main focus of the story, because that's just icky. Don't do that. Do not marry your cousins. Very illegal. And then Violet, another daughter, married George Bertolacci, maybe? That's how you say that? I don't know. So focusing on Violet, she ended up getting a divorce in 1884 just because I think she was very, very unhappy. But since divorce was not a very popular thing in the 1800s, it caused a lot of humiliation for her. And because of this humiliation, she fell into a very deep depression. Because of this deep depression, she tried to kill herself 3 times. I'm trying to remember the first 2. I think the first one, she tried to hang herself down the well and somebody got her out. And then I think she tried to jump off the roof. That one is a little rusty. I don't think that one's true, but that's what my memory is trying to remember. And then the third time, where she was successful, she shot herself in the heart and she died on the family couch. And the couch is still there today in the museum, which is kind of gross. After the tragic event, Mr. Whaley decided to build a single-story house for his family in downtown San Diego. He maintained to keep business at a real estate office with various partners there. He retired in 1888 when he fell very ill and died in the single-story house on December 14, 1890. During this time, the original Whaley House stood empty for many years until one of their sons, Francis, decided to return in 1909. He decided that he was going to restore the building to utilize the home as a residence and a tourist attraction for the house's history. He also played guitar to entertain visitors. Random. Anna, Corinne, also goes by Lillian, Francis, and George all decided to live in the house in 1912. Shortly after they all lived in this house, Mrs. Whaley was in a single-story house, and she died in 1913, just because of old age. And then that same year, Anna died on February 24th in 1913, and then Francis died on November 19th, 1914. George, who I don't know when he moved out of the house, but he died in 1928, somewhere in San Diego. That's all it said. So Corinne, or Lillian, lived in the house until 1953, until she fell. I think she broke her arm, and then just because of old age, she ended up being in a nursing home, and she died that year in 1953. So as she was living in the house alone, she was a lot older. The rest of the house fell into despair at the time, and no one lived in it for 3 years, so damage was done. So 3 years later, in 1956, the city took ownership and started to renovate the house. So from 1956 to 2000, the Historic Shrine Foundation took charge of the house and continued to take care of the house as a historic site. In September of 2000, Soho took ownership for the city to restore it back to its original state. And now, if you want to read more about the family and the history of the house, there is a whole lot more information on their websites. It's very easy to find. Just search the Whaley House history timeline. There's a lot more involved with their personal lives of each single individual person. I didn't want to go too much into detail over that. If you're interested, go take a look. It's not that hard to find. So going back to the house, Soho restored it to fit in the time period between 1868 to 1871, when the Whaley House was not only a house, but San Diego's first commercial theater, a county courthouse, and the Whaley and that last name general store. So if you want to take a tour of the house today, that is what it's going to currently look like between those time periods. Alongside of those 3 things, it also did have a billiard hall. It used to be a school, and it used to be a polling place where people cast their votes for the elections. I don't know when exactly that happened. It was probably just later on in the time period. So here is the very fun stuff that a lot of you probably want to know, are all of the haunting claims that this house has had, and there are many. So the very first ghost that was ever seen in this house was actually by the Whaley family. They would hear these big heavy footsteps throughout the house, and Mr. Whaley was convinced that it was Yankee Jim because he was hanged there before it was even built. So going on into a more recent time, in 1962, a woman in her late 60s claimed to have seen Yankee Jim walking around when she visited the museum. And children also claim to have seen Yankee Jim, and they would actually wave to him, because younger children are more, I don't know. There are claims that younger children can see ghosts more than adults can, so many children have seen Yankee Jim. And then some adults have even seen Mr. Whaley on the upper landing of the house. In 1964, a man saw Anna Whaley, which was the mother of the family, saw her floating alongside a wall that had her portrait hanging on it. She has also been seen on the first level of the house and then outside in the gardens. Some visitors have seen another woman in the courtroom, but her description doesn't match anyone of the Whaley family. The house used to be rented out to many residences, so it could just be a mystery woman during that time. There's an urban legend that one of the Whaley children's playmate, either named Annabelle or Carrie Washburn, died in the backyard while she ran into a low-hanging clothesline and accidentally broke her neck. Now, there are no records of any children dying this way in the backyard, and it could be completely made up by someone who worked at the Whaley House and wanted to bring up some more stories for the house, but this child has definitely been seen in the house, and that's a story that it follows. So don't really know, because there are no records of any children dying in the backyard like that. Another ghost that appears in the Whaley house happens to be a dog, and I'm not kidding. The Whaley family had a dog named Dolly Varden, and I don't know why she got a last name or middle name. Weird. When I was there, they were talking about ghosts, and they described that some visitors would feel a dog brush up against their leg while they were taking a tour. And then they also described that some people would have children like tugging on their clothes like a child would to get your attention. And a lot of people would feel this. When I was there, nothing like that happened, but a lot of people would have claimed that a dog just brushed up against them. When we went there to go take a tour, and I don't know if they still currently do this or not, this was 5 years ago, so if you go there, don't expect the same thing, because I don't know if they're still doing this or not. The first place that we went to was a church. I don't know the name of it. It's in that neighborhood. This is a big walking tour, so just a warning if my cousin happened to be in crutches that day because she got stung by a stingray earlier that day. That's pretty much the whole story there. But she was on crutches, so if you have an injury or something like that, somebody's in a wheelchair, it is a big walking tour around the neighborhood, just a warning. So the very first place that we went to was a church, and I can't remember the church's name or too much about the history of it because it wasn't very significant for me. I don't know. The only thing was it was very dark in there. It was super creepy. Like, I don't like to be in churches after normal Sunday hours because you're usually not in there super late. I do know one of the priests was buried inside of the church, and you could see like his steel plated burial grounds. It was inside of the church, and it was like a shrine for him, and I'm just like, that's kind of creepy just to me because I've never really heard of that ever happening. So the next place that we went to was a graveyard, and for people who know me personally, I do like haunted things, but I hate graveyards. I just get this uneasy feeling every time I'm in there. It's just kind of like, there are bodies here, there are dead bodies everywhere, they are at rest. I don't want to be there to bug them. I know some people just like walk over where their bodies are directly underneath you, and I can't, like, I will walk all the way around to not be directly over a body. So I don't know what this graveyard was called. I really can't remember too much about this one either. I know this graveyard had a lot of history to it too, about the groundskeeper who, would dig up the ground for family members that have passed away or whatever. There was some like tragic thing that happened to him too. I think he was like, he dug his own grave and then someone shot him, and there he was. That could be wrong, but I think that's what happened. Like, something very tragic happened to this poor man who took care of this cemetery for so long. But it used to be a lot bigger. When San Diego, was up and coming as a big city, they had to plan the streets and everything, and so they decided to put a street and businesses over part of the graveyard. And to respect the dead that have passed away and are buried at the cemetery, they decided to mark all of the bodies that won't have a headstone anymore. And they have like these little tiny circles that just says grave site on it, and they're like little gold circular plates. But as they were telling this, I was standing right on top of one, and I'm just like, oh my god, I'm standing over a dead body as we speak. And there's like no good order of this graveyard, and I mean, it was old, whatever, but these little circles were all over the street, all over the sidewalks. They're probably in the businesses in there, and it's just like, there are dead bodies all around me, like I don't like this. But then we actually go into the grave site, and it was severely old. Like, it's some like the architecture for the headstones have drastically changed since our time, mainly because it'd probably be very expensive to get an elaborate headstone and personal, I don't know, grieving place, I don't know. So it was really creepy and yada yada. We do have this picture. I'm gonna try to find it. It's probably really bad because it's 5 years ago and my brother's like not taller than me. But there's this picture my cousin took of us, and that little globe thing, we don't know if it's an orb or if it's the moon. It probably is the moon, let's be serious, but it's kind of hard to tell what exactly that is. That's like the only thing we have of that. And then we finally walked to the Whaley House, where we finally got a tour from a very lovely girl in a very 18th century dress. And it was all fitting to the house, to the time period, and it was very cool. Okay, so I can't remember exactly what the inside of this house looks like anymore. I really want to go back to get my memory to spark up again. But there are certain moments while we were in the house that were very distinct in my memory. So the very first thing that happened, I remember we were in the dining room, and that's where they mentioned the little girl who may have died outside when she ran into a low-hanging clothesline. But it's an urban legend and we don't know, so... But she was seen in that dining room, and I'm just like, I love this, I'm scared, I don't want to be here. But, so she was talking about that. Sorry if you can hear, I got air conditioning running because it's like 80 degrees outside right now. My fridge, yada yada. As she was talking, I want to like draw a picture for you guys. Okay, so I was kind of like one of the last people in the group or whatever, and then my cousin and my mom were near us, and I think just my whole family was near us. So the lady who was talking, there was a door behind her that led to a hallway to the rest of the house, and then on the other side of her was a door to the outside, which might have been something, or maybe it's an emergency exit or something. But that's where she's standing at. She's standing right beside a door to a hallway. Now she was telling us all the history of this part of the house. She heard a faint knocking behind her, and as she was talking, she kind of like stopped, and she was like, and she like tried to keep on talking, and then she was like, there's a girl like to the right of her, and she's like, did you just knock on the door? And the girl hasn't moved at all, and she's not even close to the door, and she's like, no. But then the lady's like, anybody else hear somebody like knock on the door? Like, it wasn't just me, was it? We're just like, we heard it, but like, we feel like it was one of your employees or something, kind of, I don't know, telling her like, hey, move on or something. But like, she stopped the tour, and she was a little freaked out, and we're just all like, what's going on? Like, I don't know, these people, I mean, it is kind of a big house, but if another tour group was going on, you'd be able to hear them and hear all 20 people in there. And I don't think they're not really the type of people to use cheap scares on this kind of a tour, because it's more kind of like a historic haunted tour, not really like a, you know, Halloween scary tour or whatever like that. So she was about to continue and everything, and our senses are like up high, and we're just like, what the fuck's going on? Like, is there going to be another knock? And then on the other side to the door that's leading to the outside, to the street, somebody runs up there and is pounding on the door super fucking loud. Everyone in the room just fucking jumped, and we're just like, oh my god, like what the fuck's happening? And when I get scared, I just start laughing, and I had tears streaming down my face, and I'm like, oh my god, like I'm so scared, I don't know what's happening anymore. And my mom's like doing the same thing. But while this is all happening, my cousin like zoned out during this or something like that, I'm not sure. But she was just like, all of a sudden, she's just like watching us freaking the fuck out, and she was just dying of laughter. Like, she thought it was hilarious that we were just freaking out. So we had maybe a little haunted knock, and then we had somebody who was an asshole outside, which was a pretty good scare. That was kind of funny. But anyway, so we continued throughout the house, and then we decided to go upstairs, because that was the next part of the tour. And upstairs were all the creepy children's bedrooms, and 18th century child's bedroom is not going to be very pretty looking. You could kind of go into the bedroom, but there were these big glass panels, so you can't actually disturb the scene. I believe everything in the house was original to the house. It didn't sell anything. If there was a replica, it's very to that time period. But it's just like, it was dark out too, so very dark, creepy child's bedroom, and I think there were maybe 3 of them. That part's rusty too, but it was just creepy. And then the very last part of the tour, we were sitting up in the first commercial theater of San Diego. And this wasn't original anymore. They had to recreate it to restore it to that time period. So I knew that. And it was like, it was a very small stage, because I think it used to be a bedroom in there. And I know some of the other children's bedrooms used to be storage for the theater and stuff like that. But it was like, you know how stages are like flat, but this was like angled, so you could like see everything like when you're sitting, so people in the back can still see. But it was very small, it was very awkward, I don't know. But my own personal experience was, I don't know, we were sitting in there and they were just kind of like talking, and this is like where people could ask questions about the place, and I was just sitting there and I had this feeling like I didn't feel safe in there anymore. Like, everything was fine up to that point, but when I like sat down, I was, you know, I don't know, I just got this feeling that I need to get out. Like, I shouldn't be here anymore. Like, I don't feel safe in here, and I just had this very uneasy feeling, and I was just like, I felt like I was gonna pass out, but like, I was fine for the whole entire day, and I was even standing earlier, but now I was sitting and I don't feel like I'm gonna pass out. Because usually when I know what it feels like to pass out, I have passed out in church, that's a different story, but I do not feel safe in there anymore. I just felt like I needed to get out right now, and I wanted this tour to be over. As soon as I left, I felt fine. I don't know what it was, if that was an experience or just the house getting to my head, and I don't know if that was like a haunting or what the fuck that was. I would definitely recommend, I'm definitely going to go back there again whenever I am in California sometime. But they have done a great job of restoring the home, and I definitely highly recommend going to the haunted house because it was awesome. And I don't know if the tour is still like that today, where you go to a church, then a cemetery, then the Whaley House. They may have changed that over the years, but I definitely recommend going there. Please like this video if you want to continue seeing more of my haunted places that I've been to. Comment below if you've actually been there before, because I want to know your experiences if you've been there, or if you've ever been to a haunted house. Like, did you have a weird encounter too, or did you see anything? I definitely want to know because I'm very interested in that stuff. I really want to visit more haunted places this summer that are more local in Ohio, Indiana, because I can see like where people are from in the views, and a lot of people are from Ohio and Indiana specifically, so I will definitely try to find more haunted places nearby. So that is it for this video. I will post another video next week, hopefully on time, and I will see you all later. Bye!